Growing a startup is not hard, it's not complex, it's actually misunderstood. Let me explain you why. Simple doesn't mean easy, but there are a couple of mistakes that most founders are doing. How I know that? Well, this year I did about 150 consultations with startup founders, business founders, and entrepreneurs. And I've noticed the same mistakes all over again. Most founders think it's about ads, recruiting more sales, scaling, growing, or going on to that new platform, or eventually vibe coding a new feature. But in reality, it's not that. The problem lays in the foundations. A lot of people focus on the cherry on top of the cake, but most of you forget the foundation, the cake itself. And so in this video, I'm going to share you the foundational groundwork that you need to put in place to avoid these classic mistakes. And once you've understood that, you realize that startup is actually simple. And if you don't know me, my name is Riley Riles. I'm a startup advisor and investor, and I dedicate the last 15 years working with startups, building my own. I'm a software engineer by degree, and I help those startups 50 plus go from zero to, for some of them, up to $1 million. And I also work with big international companies, tech companies, insurance, banks, governments all around the world on $100 million plus projects. And that's why I can share you this knowledge. So without further ado, let's go. So aspect number one, founders and entrepreneurs have the wrong focal point. And what they should be looking for is product market fit or traction. You should be aiming for product market fit or traction. The reason why you should aim for these two notions is because these notions are directly connected to the market. And so it means that people are interested in your product because it's solving a problem that they have. And you should be obsessed by this idea of, am I solving a problem for someone? And that problem ideally should be hard, recognized, acknowledged, and urgent. So what I mean by that is, it's great to solve a problem that people have once a year. But if that problem, the solution to that problem is a nice to have and not a must have, then it's going to be harder to get people to buy it. And that's one of the notion of product market fit. The other aspect of product market fit, the other aspect is, if you're not into that product market fit, is the traction. Traction is essentially, let me draw it for you here. Traction is essentially a growing number of attention, sales, and enthusiasm around what you're building. And so what it means is that more time passes, more people are getting aware of what you're doing, are interested in what you're doing, and are eventually buying what you're doing. So the more that number is growing through time, and ideally what you want is the exponential. But it's perfectly fine if you have something linear. You want traction, and you want to try to get as fast as possible to that idea of product market fit. A lot of you don't have the foundations or don't know the foundations, and so the number one mistake I've seen across the 150 plus consultations I did this year is that you don't measure. No, you don't. And so what I mean by you don't measure, what I saw is you don't measure the time you spend doing things. Like, the question I typically ask is, show me your calendar. I want to see what you did this week and the week before. And when I look at it, it's empty. It has one task here and there, but people cannot tell me exactly what they have done throughout the day or throughout the week. And so you cannot improve what you don't measure. So the first thing you need to do is to track your time and your actions. That is essential. The second thing I've seen that is not measured is the money. Money in and money out. How much money you spend on your tools, on people, on ads, on everything. How much money you spend. And most of the founders I've talked to cannot give me the number without spending 10, 15, 20 minutes looking for it in multiple files. you should know those numbers by heart and you should check them daily. Another thing that people don't measure is the feedback. You build things for people, and so you should know what people feel about your product. And so, classic thing, when I ask, okay, show me the feedback from your users, I usually hear crickets. Create an NPS survey or a satisfaction survey and ask people to rate their experience from 0 to 10, or actually go from 0 to 7, so that they cannot just go in the middle and don't position themselves. 0 to 7, 0 is, it's hell, I just want to burn everything, and 7 is, it's so good that I'm willing to sell my house just to give you the money so you can use it as ads to get more users. And so you want that, and then dive into this and ask them, okay, why that grade? You gave me a 5, what is missing to get to the 7? And the other thing is, talk to your users. ChatGPT is not your user. The new version of the Oracle is not your users. It's not your user, sorry. Get on calls with them, send them emails, talk to them, and have meaningful conversation. Get that qualitative feedback. That's essential, and you need to measure it. Same thing, the usage. How much time people spend on your application or your service. That's super essential. Do they drop off really quickly? It's just like a YouTube video. Okay, your YouTube video has 1 million views, but people spend 10 seconds on it. What does it say about it? It's very different. So measure how much time people spend using your products and services, and then connect this to talking to your users to get the extra feedback. So the usage is going to give you quantitative data. The feedback survey is going to give you quantitative data as well, but if you talk to your users, you'll get qualitative data, and the combination of the two is a masterpiece. And the last one, satisfaction. Obviously, if people are happy or not with the solution, but as I mentioned with the feedback, this is something that you should measure. So in the don't measure section, these are the things that you need to do. Don't hesitate to pause the video and rewind it to take a couple of notes, but that's the minimum, the bare minimum that you should do in terms of measure. Now, the second biggest weakness in your foundation is the distraction, and you're doing too many things. So one of the reasons why you're distracted and doing too many things is often because you don't even realize it, because you're not measuring. Like I said, with your calendar, you should measure everything you do on a daily basis. And I have a video about how you can use Google Calendar to really organize yourself. I put the link in the description. But in order to be focused, you need to reduce the scope of your focus. Like if your camera is filming 180 degrees, then it cannot focus on just one point. And so what you want to do is exactly that, is you want to narrow your focal point so you just focus on the key things that actually drive your business. But I see you right here. Yeah, Riley, you just laying out the facts, but you don't giving us any solutions. Hold on. Whoop! I'm losing my stickies. So solution. Okay, so here's the solution. OKRs, objectives and key results. I'm not gonna lay out the full explanation of what OKRs are because I have a special video for that, but here's the quick elevator pitch. OKRs, objectives and key results, is essentially an approach where you define your destination, we call it a North Star, and then from that destination, that ambitious point that you want to reach, you're going to identify 3 to 5 objectives, and you have to reduce yourself to 3 to 5 objectives. And if you're very young in the startup and business world, I would actually advise to focus on 3. And that will force you to narrow your focus. And because you narrow your focus, now you have more energy to deploy into those 3 objectives so that you can see if by achieving those objectives, it takes your business forward. So 3 to 5 objectives, and then for each objectives, a couple of key results. And essentially, key results are divided into 3 categories: the inputs, like the reps, the things you can control and do by yourself, like I can write a couple of stickies, these will be my reps. Then you'll have the output and then the outcome. So in my example here, the input is I'm filming and publishing video. This is something I fully control, though that's my inputs in terms of key results. Now the output could be the views. I don't control the views, so they are outputs. And now the outcome could eventually be people booking calls. So that's a consequence of an output and something I capitalize on. So people booking the calls probably means that they like this kind of content, so I learn something from it, and so I can then iterate. And that's the same thing that you want to do with your objectives. You want to then define key results and three kinds of key results. The inputs, something you control, the outputs, something you don't necessarily control, and the outcomes, something you don't control and that you can capitalize on. You can learn from it. And so I want you to focus on 3 to 5 OKRs. And as I mentioned, I have a full masterclass video on OKRs, what they are, how you can create them, even a tool that you can use to build those OKRs and track them on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. And I lay this out in a really, I think it's a 45-minute video with really cool examples of big companies and startups. And so if you're interested in having a look at this video, that is unlisted. You cannot access it on YouTube. Fill the form in the description down below. Give me a little email, mention that you're interested in the OKR Masterclass, and I'll send it to you via email. Back to the video. The third big thing I do, and you'll see it's all connected. So the third big thing that is missing to most of you in your foundations is you don't do enough of the hard things. And you see, it's perfectly aligned. You don't measure, you don't have focus, so you don't do enough of the hard things. And so the idea here is pretty simple. First, start by measuring your actions, your time you spend, the money, the impact of your product, etc. Then run a couple of experiments with the OKRs, and then based on that, focus on doing the hard things. Here's the thing, and do me a favor. Put on pause the usage of your LLMs and GPTs and stuff like that. Put on pause the automations and the newsletters and the one button to send to everyone everything, and start doing things that don't scale. Let me just write it down to make sure that you guys get it. Do things that don't scale. Do things that don't scale. Because here's the thing. I saw in those 150 consultations, I saw so many founders that were looking for the quick hack, the quick shortcut. And what happened was they were jumping from hack to hack to hack, and they were jumping from shortcut to shortcut to shortcut, an eternity later, to shortcut to shortcut. And at the end, they've wasted months. I even had a guy in consultation that lost 6 months jumping from shortcut to shortcut and just getting nowhere. So here's the thing. If a shortcut takes longer than a normal road, it's not a shortcut. So what you want to do is do the hard things. What do you prefer? To watch a video of Sam Altman explaining you a startup concept? Or do you prefer to have Sam Altman sitting next to you explaining your startup concept? Of course, you'd prefer to have Sam Altman next to you. It could be also Elon Musk. I'm really not judging here. The more you cannot scale something, the more chances you have that it has a better quality and experience. And so that's what you want to do with your clients, especially if you're starting your business and if you're looking for your first customers. You want to do things that are super high experience and super high value because you want to capitalize on that. And the thing is, everyone has access to AI, everyone has access to vibe coding. So if you vibe code something, someone else will do it. Someone else will be able to do it as well. But if you take the time to go out there, have human-to-human relationship, it will be harder for people to catch up with what you're doing. I remember when I remember when Uber started, the drivers were wearing suits, they were giving you a free bottle of water and candy. I really miss that time. Now it's over, but at the time it was doing things that cannot scale. And that's exactly what you need to have in mind with your business. You want to focus on the things that are hard, because if they are hard, there is less and less people who will catch up with you. Let me do it again. And that is the real hack. If you like this video, let me know with the comments down below, or like or subscribe, you know the drill. If you're still puzzled by what I said and you want to have a little bit of a conversation, I'll put a link in the description down below. I'll lay out a couple of free consulting sessions. See, I'm doing things that don't scale. My name is Riley Riles. I'm a startup advisor and investor. And see you on the next one. Boom.